This is Harry McDonald, Vice President in charge of radio operations. Thank you for listening in to our program. Before we begin, we'd like to note that this program merely is a tribute and an adaptation. All rights belong to the Columbia Broadcasting System and the Mercury on the Air Theater. We do not claim ownership of the original broadcast. All references are exclusive to the 1938 original broadcast provided by Orson Welles' Mercury on the Air Theater and the Columbia Broadcasting System. We hope you enjoy this voyage on the air.
Many years ago, Orson Welles and his team of actors at the Mercury on the Air Theater created something truly significant. In all honesty, one that would shock the nation. Back in 1938, Orson Welles, at just 23 years of age, crafted H.G. Wells' War of the Worlds alongside CBS into a program that would leave the nation at the edge of their seats. However, we can now truly understand the genius behind Orson Welles' mind and how it impacted the world. Terror, survival, meaning, all these themes were relayed back in 1938, but those themes are greater even now. We will take this opportunity to reintroduce you back to the world of 1938, an opportunity to relive this story as it was intended. We seek to recapture that moment in history, a time where aliens ruled the world for an hour, but captured the imagination of our minds forever. A tribute to Orson Welles' War of the Worlds, adapted from H.G. Wells.
Right now, we take you to the heart of the action. This is the day of October 30th, 1938, as provided by the Columbia Broadcasting System and the Mercury on the Air Theater. We give to you tribute to Orson Welles' War of the Worlds.
We know now that in the early years of the 20th century, this world was being watched closely by intelligences greater than man's, and yet as mortal as his own. We know now that as human beings busied themselves about their various concerns, they were scrutinized and studied, perhaps almost as narrowly as a man with a microscope might scrutinize the transient creatures that swarm and multiply in a drop of water. With infinite complacence, people went to and fro over the earth about their little affairs, serene in the assurance of their dominion over the small, spinning fragment of solar driftwood which, by chance or design, man has inherited out of the dark mystery of time and space. Yet across an immense ethereal gulf, minds that are to our minds as ours are to the beasts in the jungle, intellects, vast, cool, and unsympathetic, regarded this earth with envious eyes, and slowly and surely drew their plans against us. In the 39th year of the 20th century came the Great Disillusionment. It was near the end of October. Business was better. The war scare was over. More men were back at work. Sales were picking up. On the evening of October the 30th, the Crosley service estimated that 32 million people were listening in.
For the next 24 hours, not much change in temperature. A slight atmospheric disturbance of undetermined origin is reported over Nova Scotia, causing a low-pressure area to move down rather rapidly over the northeastern states, bringing a forecast of rain accompanied by winds of light force. Maximum temperature, 66. Minimum, 48. This weather report comes to you from the Government Weather Bureau. We take you now back where you'll be entertained by the music of Ramon Recchio and his orchestra.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. From the Meridian Room in the Park Plaza Hotel in New York City, we bring you the music of Ramon Recchio and his orchestra. With a touch of the Spanish, Ramon Arquillo leads off with La Comparsita. The rhythms featured here highlight the balance between the woodwinds and the brass ensemble throughout the piece. We hope that you will enjoy these wonderful selections. Ladies and gentlemen, we interrupt our program of dance music to bring you a special bulletin from the Intercontinental Radio News.
Thank you. At 20 minutes before 8 Central Time, Professor Farrell of the Mount Jennings Observatory, Chicago, Illinois, reports observing several explosions of incandescent gas occurring at regular intervals on the planet Mars. The spectroscope indicates the gas to be hydrogen and moving towards the Earth with enormous velocity. Professor PIERSON of the observatory at Princeton confirms Farrell's observations and describes the phenomenon as, quote, like a jet of blue flame shot from a gun, unquote. We now return you to the music of Ramon Arquillo, playing for you in the Meridian Room of the Park Plaza Hotel, situated in downtown New York.
Thank you. And now, a tune that never loses favor, the ever-popular Stardust. Ramon Arquillo and his orchestra. As always, we thank you for listening in.
Ladies and gentlemen, following on the news given in our bulletin just a moment ago, the Government Meteorological Bureau has requested the large observatories of the country to keep an astronomical watch on any further disturbances occurring on the planet Mars. Due to the unusual nature of this occurrence, we have arranged an interview with a noted astronomer, Professor PIERSON, who will give us his views on this event. In a few moments, we will take you to the Princeton Observatory at Princeton, New Jersey. We take you back now to our program.
We are ready now to take you to the Princeton Observatory at Princeton, where Carl Phillips, our commentator, will interview Professor Richard PIERSON, a famous astronomer. We take you now to Princeton, New Jersey.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is Carl Phillips speaking to you from the Observatory of Princeton. I am standing in a large semicircular room, pitch black except for an oblong split in the ceiling. Through the opening, I can see a sprinkling of stars that cast a kind of frosty glow over the intricate mechanism of the huge telescope. The ticking sound you hear is the vibration of the clockwork. Professor PIERSON stands directly above me on a small platform, peering through the giant lens. I ask you to be patient, ladies and gentlemen, during any delay that may arise during our interview. Besides his ceaseless watch of the heavens, Professor PIERSON may be interrupted by telephone or other communications. During this period, he is in constant touch with the astronomical centers of the world. Professor, may I begin our questions?
At any time, Mr. Phillips.
Professor, would you please tell our audience exactly what you see as you observe the planet Mars through your telescope?
Nothing unusual at the moment, Mr. Phillips. A red disk swimming in a blue sea. Transverse stripes across the disk, quite distinct now because Mars happens to be at the point nearest the Earth. In opposition, as we call it.
In your opinion, what do these transverse stripes signify, Professor PIERSON?
Not canals, I can assure you, Mr. Phillips, although that's the popular conjecture of those who imagine Mars to be inhabited. From a scientific viewpoint, the stripes are merely the result of atmospheric conditions peculiar to the planet.
Then you're quite convinced as a scientist that living intelligence as we know it does not exist on Mars?
I'd say the chances against it are 1,000 to 1.
And yet, how do you account for these gas eruptions occurring on the surface of the planet at regular intervals?
Mr. Phillips, I cannot account for it.
By the way, Professor, for the benefit of our listeners, how far is Mars from the Earth?
Approximately 40 million miles.
Well, that seems like a safe enough distance. Thank you, Professor. Just a moment, ladies and gentlemen. Someone has just handed Professor Pierson a message. While he reads it, let me remind you that we are speaking to you from the observatory in Princeton, New Jersey, where we are interviewing the world-famous astronomer, Professor Pierson. Oh, one moment, please. Professor Pierson has passed me a message which he has just received. Professor, may I read the message to our audience?
Certainly, Mr. Phillips.
Ladies and gentlemen, I shall read you the message addressed to Professor Pierson from Dr. Gray of the National History Museum in New York. Quote, 9:15 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Seismograph registered shock of almost earthquake intensity occurring within a radius of 20 miles of Princeton. Please investigate. Signed, Lloyd Gray, Chief of Astronomical Division. Unquote. Professor Pierson, could this occurrence possibly have something to do with the disturbances observed on the planet Mars?
Hardly, Mr. Phillips. This is probably a meteorite of unusual size, and its arrival at this particular time is merely a coincidence. However, we shall conduct a search as soon as daylight permits.
Thank you, Professor. Ladies and gentlemen, for the past 10 minutes, we've been speaking to you from the observatory at Princeton, bringing you a special interview with Professor Pierson, noted astronomer. This is Carl Phillips speaking. We are returning you now to our studio in New York.
Ladies and gentlemen, here is the latest bulletin from the Intercontinental Radio News, Toronto, Canada. Professor Morse of Macmillan University reports observing a total of 3 explosions on the planet Mars between the hours of 7:45 and 9:20 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. This confirms earlier reports received from American observatories. Now, nearer home, comes a special bulletin from Trenton, New Jersey. It is reported that at 8:50 p.m., a huge flaming object believed to be a meteorite fell on a farm in the neighborhood of Grover's Mill, New Jersey, 22 miles from Trenton. The flash in the sky was visible within a radius of several hundred miles, and the noise of the impact was heard as far north as Elizabeth. We have dispatched a special mobile unit to the scene, and we'll have our commentator, Carl Phillips, give you a word picture of the scene as soon as he can reach there from Princeton. Afterwards, we will take you to the Hotel Martinet in Brooklyn, where we will be offering you a program of dance music. We take you now to Grover's Mill, New Jersey.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is Carl Phillips again, out of the Wilmouth Farm, Grover's Mill, New Jersey. Well, I hardly know where to begin. Well, I just got here. I haven't had a chance to look around yet. I guess that's it. Yes, I guess that's the thing. Directly in front of me, buried in a vast pit. Must have struck with terrific force. The ground is covered with splinters of a tree it must have struck on its way down. What I can see of the object itself doesn't very much look like a meteor. At least not the meteors I've seen. It looks more like a huge cylinder. It has a diameter of, what would you say, Professor Pierson? What would you say is the diameter of this?
About 30 yards.
About 30 yards. The metal on the sheath is... well, I've never seen anything like it. The color is sort of yellowish white. Curious spectators now are pressing close to the object in spite of the efforts of the police to keep them back. They're getting in my line of vision.
Oh, come on, let me see.
What's going on?
What is it?
Back up. This is authorized personnel area only.
What's going on?
One side there. One side.
Let us
Stand back.
What's
What's going on? Let us stand back. Come on.
While the police are pushing the crowd back, here's Mr. Wilmouth, owner of the farm here. He may have some interesting facts to add. Mr. Wilmouth, would you please tell our audience as much as you remember of this rather unusual visitor that dropped in your backyard?
Well, I was listening to the radio.
Closer and louder, please.
Pardon me. I was listening to the radio, and kind of drowsing. That professor fellow was talking about Mars, so I was half dozing and half. It got to the point where I was.
Yes, Mr. Wilmoth, and then what happened?
Well, as I was saying, I was listening to the radio kind of halfways. Then something happened.
Yes, Mr. Wilmoth, and then you saw something?
Not first off. I heard something.
And what did you hear?
A hissing sound. Like this. Kind of like a 4th of July rocket.
Yes, and then what?
I turned my head out the window, and I would have swore I was sleeping and dreaming.
Yes?
I seen that kind of greenish streak, then zingo! Something smacked the ground, knocked me clear out of my chair.
Were you frightened, Mr. Wilmoth?
Well, I ain't quite sure. I reckon I was kind of riled.
Thank you, Mr. Wilmoth. Thank you very much.
Want me to tell you some more?
No, that's quite all right. That's plenty. Ladies and gentlemen, you've just heard Mr. Wilmoth, owner of the farm where this thing has fallen. I wish I could convey the atmosphere, the background of this scene. Hundreds of cars are parked in a field in back of us, and the police are trying to rope off the street leading into the farm, but it's no use. They're breaking right through. Car's headlights throw an enormous spotlight on the pit where the object is buried. Now, some of the more daring souls are now venturing near the edge. Their silhouettes stand out against the metal sheen. One man wants to touch the thing.
I'm gonna need some backup over here. You! Get away from there!
Hands up! Let me see this. What's going on over here?
Now, ladies and gentlemen, there's something I haven't mentioned, but now it's becoming more distinct. Perhaps you've caught it already. Listen, please. Do you hear it? It's a curious humming sound that seems to come from inside the object. I'll move the microphone nearer. Now we're not more than 25 feet away. Can you hear it now? Professor Pierson!
Yes, Mr. Phillips?
Can you tell us the meaning of that scraping noise inside the thing?
Possibly the unequal cooling of its surface.
I see. Do you still think it's a meteor, Professor?
I don't know what to think. The metal casing is definitely extraterrestrial, not found on this Earth. Friction with Earth's atmosphere usually tears holes in a meteorite. This thing is smooth and, as you can see, of cylindrical shape.
Just a minute. Something's happening. Ladies and gentlemen, this is terrific. This end of the thing is beginning to flake off. The top is beginning to rotate like a screw, and the thing must be hollow.
Oh my gosh.
Back up!
Oh my God!
Back up!
Get out of here!
Back up!
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the most terrifying thing I have ever witnessed. Wait a minute. Someone's crawling out of the top.
There it is! There it is!
Someone or something. I can see peering out of that black hole 2 luminous discs. Are they eyes? It might be a face. It might be... Good heavens! Something's wriggling out of the shadows like a gray snake.
What is that thing? Anything like
No, it's another one. And another one. And another one.
It's hideous!
They look like tentacles to me. I can see the thing's body now. It's large. Large as a bear, and it glistens like wet leather.
God.
But that face,
I've never seen anything like it.
ladies and gentlemen, it's indescribable. I can hardly force myself to keep looking at it. It's so awful. The eyes are black and gleam like a serpent. The mouth is V-shaped and with the saliva dripping from its rimless lips that seem to quiver and pulsate. The monster, or whatever it is, can hardly move. It seems weighed down by possibly gravity or something. The thing's rising up now. And the crowd falls back now.
Run!
They've seen plenty. This is the most extraordinary experience, ladies and gentlemen. I can't find words. I'll pull this microphone with me as I talk. I'll have to stop the description until I can take a new position. Hold on, will you please? I'll be right back in a minute.
Our apologies for the change in programming. Due to the gravity of this situation, we will intermittently be bringing you an eyewitness account of what's happening on the Wilmoth Farm, Grover's Mill, New Jersey. In the meantime, we welcome you back the Orchestra of Dance Music by Bobby Millette. Pardon the interruption, we now return you to Carl Phillips at Grover's Mill.
Ladies and gents, am I on? Ladies and gentlemen, I am in the back of a stone wall that adjoins Mr. Wilmoth's garden. From here I get a sweep of the whole scene. I'll give you every detail as long as I can talk and as long as I can see. More state police have arrived. They're drawing up a cordon in front of the pit. About 30 of them. No need to push the crowd back now. They're willing to keep their distance. The captain is conferring with someone. We can't quite see who. Yes, I believe it's Professor Pierson. Yes, it is. Now they've parted, and the professor moves around one side, studying the object, while the captain and two policemen advance with something in their hands. I can see it now. It's a white handkerchief tied to a pole. A flag of truce. If those creatures know what that means. What anything means. Wait a minute. Something's happening. A humped shape is rising out of the pit.
It's rising.
Oh my gosh!
It's rising!
Run faster!
I can make out a small beam of light against a mirror and... What's that? There's a jet of flame springing from the mirror. It leaps right at the advancing men.
Run!
It strikes them head on. Good Lord, they're turning into flames!
Get out of here!
After us!
Get them out of here!
Now the whole field's caught fire. The woods, the barns, the gas tanks of automobiles, it's spreading everywhere. It's coming this way. About 20 yards to my right.
Ladies and gentlemen, due to circumstances beyond our control, we are unable to continue the broadcast from Grover's Mill. Evidently, there's some difficulty with our field transmission. However, we will return to that point at the earliest opportunity. In the meantime, we have a late bulletin from San Diego, California. Professor Indelkoffer, speaking at a dinner of the California Astronomical Society, expressed the opinion that the explosions on Mars are undoubtedly nothing more than severe volcanic disturbances on the surface of the planet. We continue now with our piano interlude.
Ladies and gentlemen, I've just been handed a message that came in from Grover's Mill by telephone. Just one moment, please. At least 40 people, including 6 state troopers, lie dead in a field east of the village of Grover's Mill. Their bodies burned and distorted beyond all possible recognition. The next voice you will hear will be that of Brigadier General Montgomery Smith, commander of the state militia at Trenton, New Jersey.
I have been requested by the governor of New Jersey to place the counties of Mercer and Middlesex as far west as Princeton and east to Jamesburg under martial law. No one will be permitted to enter this area except for authorized personnel by special pass issued by state or military operations. These areas are no longer safe for civilian usage. 4 companies of state militia are proceeding from Trenton to Grover's Mill and will aid in the evacuation of homes within the range of military operations. In this time, I urge extreme caution for necessary travel. Property is replaceable. Lives are not. Thank you.
You have just been listening to General Montgomery Smith commanding the state militia at Trenton. In the meantime, further details of the catastrophe at Grover's Mill are coming in. The strange creatures, after unleashing their deadly assault, crawled back in their pit and made no attempt to prevent the efforts of the firemen to recover the bodies and extinguish the fire. The combined fire departments of Mercer County are fighting the flames which menace the entire countryside. We have been unable to establish any contact with our mobile unit at Grover's Mill, but we hope to be able to return you there at the earliest possible moment. In the meantime, we take you to... Just one moment, please. Ladies and gentlemen, I have just been informed that we have finally established communication with an eyewitness of the tragedy.
Professor Pierson has been located at a farmhouse near Grover's Mill where he has established an emergency observation post. As a scientist, he will give you his explanation of the attack. The next voice you hear will be that of Professor Pierson. Go ahead, Professor.
Of the creatures in the rocket cylinder at Grover's Mill, I can give you no authoritative information, either to their nature, their origin, or their purposes here on Earth. Of their destructive instrument, I might venture some conjectural explanation. For want of a better term, I shall refer to the mysterious weapon as a heat ray. It's all too evident that these creatures have scientific knowledge far in advance of our own. It's my guess that, in some way, they are able to generate an intense heat in a chamber of practically absolute no conductivity. This intense heat they project in a parallel beam against any object they choose by means of a polished parabolic mirror of unknown composition, much as the mirror of a lighthouse projects a beam of light. That is my conjecture of the origin of the heat ray.
Ladies and gentlemen, here is a bulletin from Trenton. It is a brief statement informing us that the charred body of Carl Phillips has been identified in a Trenton hospital. Now, here's another bulletin from Washington, D.C. The Office of the Director of the Red Cross reports 10 units of emergency workers have been assigned to the headquarters of the state militia stationed outside Grover's Mill, New Jersey. Here's a bulletin from the state police, Princeton Junction. The fires at Grover's Mill in vicinity are now under control. Scouts report all quiet in the pit, and there's no sign of life appearing from the cylinder. And now, ladies and gentlemen, we have a special statement from Mr. Harry McDonald, Vice President in charge of radio operations.
We have received a request from the state militia at Trenton to place at their disposal our entire broadcasting facilities. In view of the gravity of the situation, and believing that radio has a responsibility to serve in the public interest at all times, we are turning over our facilities to the state militia at Trenton. Our regular programming will be halted until further notice. In these times, we seek to keep you informed of the situation at hand. We take this matter very seriously, as for the safety of our audience is the #1 priority. Thank you.
We now take you to the field headquarters of the state militia near Grover's Mill, New Jersey.
This is Captain Lansing of the Signal Corps, attached to the state militia, now engaged in military operations in the vicinity of Grover's Mill. The situation arising from the reported presence of certain individuals of unidentified nature is now under complete control. The cylindrical object which lies in a pit directly below our position is surrounded on all sides by 8 battalions of infantry, without heavy field pieces but adequately armed with rifles and machine guns. All cause for alarm, if such cause ever existed, is now entirely unjustified. The things, whatever they are, do not even venture to poke their heads above the pit. I can see their hiding places plainly in the glare of the searchlights here. With all their reported resources, these creatures can scarcely stand up against heavy machine gun fire. Anyway, it's an interesting outing for the troops. I can make out their khaki uniforms crossing back and forth in front of the lights. Looks almost like a real war. There appears to be some slight smoke in the woods bordering the Millstone River, probably started by campers. Well, we ought to see some action soon. One of the companies is deploying on the left flank. A quick thrust and it will all be over. Now, wait a minute. I see something on top of the cylinder. No, it's nothing but a shadow. Now, the troops are on the edge of the Wilmoth farm. 7,000 armed men closing in on an old metal tub, rather. Wait, that wasn't a shadow. It's something moving. Solid metal. Kind of a shield-like affair rising up out of the cylinder. It's going higher and higher. It's standing on legs. Actually rearing up on a sort of metal framework. Now it's reaching above the trees and the searchlights are on it.
Hold on! All units scramble now! Keep going! Coordinate fire! Charge! This is fire! Come back, struggle around! Fire! Struggle around it! Fire!
Ladies and gentlemen, I have a grave announcement to make. Incredible as it may seem, both the observations of science and the evidence of our eyes lead to the inescapable assumption that those strange beings who landed in the New Jersey farmlands tonight are the vanguard of an invading army from the planet Mars. The battle which took place tonight at Grover's Mill has ended in one of the most startling defeats ever suffered by an army in modern times. 7,000 people armed with rifles and machine guns pitted against a single fighting machine of the invaders from Mars. 120 known survivors. The rest strewn over the battle area from Grover's Mill to Plainsboro. Crushed and trampled to death under the metal feet of the monster, or burned to cinders by its heat ray. The invaders are now in control of the middle section of New Jersey and have effectively cut the state through its center. Communication lines are down from Pennsylvania to the Atlantic Ocean. Railroad tracks are torn and service from New York to Philadelphia has been suspended. Highways to the north, south, and west are clogged with traffic. Police and army reserves are unable to control them. By morning, the fugitives will have engulfed Philadelphia, Camden, and Trenton, it is estimated, to twice their normal population. Martial law prevails throughout New Jersey and eastern Pennsylvania. At this time, we take you to Washington for a special broadcast on the national emergency, the Secretary of the Interior.
Citizens of the nation, I shall not try to conceal the gravity of the situation that confronts the country, nor the concern of your government in protecting the lives and property of its people. However, I wish to impress upon you, private citizens and public officials, all of you, the urgent need of calm and resourceful action. Fortunately, this formidable enemy is still confined to a comparatively small area, and we may place our faith in the military forces to keep them there. In the meantime, placing our faith in God, we must continue the performance of our duties, each and every one of us, so that we may confront this destructive adversary with a nation united, courageous, and consecrated to the preservation of humanity on this earth. I thank you.
You have just heard the Secretary of the Interior speaking from Washington. Bulletins too numerous to read are piling up. We are informed that the central portion of New Jersey is cut off due to the effect of the heat ray upon power lines and electrical equipment. Here is a special bulletin from New York. Support has been received from English, French, and German scientific bodies offering assistance. Astronomers report gas outbursts at regular intervals on the planet Mars. The majority voice the opinion that the enemy will be reinforced by additional rocket machines. There have been several attempts made to locate Professor Pierson of Princeton, who has observed these invaders at close range. It is feared he was lost in the recent battle. From Langham Field, Virginia, scouting planes report 3 unidentified machines were visible above the treetops and were moving north towards Somerville with a human population fleeing ahead of them. The heat ray is not in use, although advancing at express train speed, invaders pick their way carefully. They seem to be making a conscious effort to avoid destruction of cities and countryside. However, they stop to uproot power lines, bridges, highways, airports, and railroad tracks. Their apparent objective is to crush resistance, paralyze communication, and disorganize human society. Here is a bulletin from Basking Ridge, New Jersey. Hunters have stumbled upon a second cylinder, similar to the first, embedded in the Great Swamp 20 miles south of Morristown. Army field pieces are proceeding from Newark to blow up the second invading unit before the cylinder can be opened and the fighting machine rigged. They are taking up a position in the Watchung Mountains. Back to Langham Field, Virginia. Scouting planes report enemy machines, now 3 in number, are increasing speed northward, kicking over houses and trees in their evident haste to form a conjunction with their allies south of Morristown. Machines also sighted by telephone operators east of Middlesex within 10 miles of Plainfield. Here's a bulletin from Winston Field, Long Island. A fleet of Army bombers carrying heavy explosives flying north in pursuit of the enemy. Scouting planes act as guides. They keep the speeding enemy in sight. Ladies and gentlemen, we've connected into the artillery line in adjacent villages to give you direct reports in the zone of the advancing enemy. First, we take you to the 22nd Field Artillery, located in the Watchung Mountains.
Range, 32 meters.
32 meters.
Projection, 39 degrees.
39 degrees.
Fire.
140 yards to the right, sir.
Shift range, 31 meters.
31 meters.
Projection, 37 degrees.
37 degrees.
Fire!
A hit, sir. We got the tripod off one of them. They've stopped. The others are trying to repair it.
Quick, get the range. Shift 30 meters.
30 meters.
Projection, 27 degrees.
27 degrees.
Fire!
Can't see the shell land, sir. They're letting off a smoke.
What is it?
A black smoke, sir. Moving this way. Lying close to the ground. It's moving fast.
Put on gas mask. Get ready to fire. Shift to 24 meters.
24 meters.
Projection, 24 degrees.
24 degrees.
Fire!
Still can't see, sir. The smoke's coming nearer.
Get the range.
23 meters.
23 meters.
23 meters.
Projection, 22 degrees.
Army bombing plane V-843 off Bayonne, New Jersey, Lieutenant VOGHT, commanding 8 bombers. Reporting to Commander Fairfax, Langham Field. This is VOGHT reporting to Commander Fairfax, Langham Field. Enemy tripod machines are now in sight, reinforced by 3 machines from the Morristown cylinder. 6 altogether. 1 machine partially crippled, believed hit by a shell from an army gun in Watchung Mountains. Guns now appear silent. There's a heavy black fog hanging close to the earth, of extreme density. Nature unknown. No sign of the heat ray. Enemies now turning east, crossing Passaic River to the Jersey marshes. Another one straddles the Pulaski Skyway. Evident objective is New York City. They're pushing down a high-tension power station. The machines are close together now. And we're ready to attack! Planes circling, ready to strike! 1,000 yards and we'll be over the first. 800 yards. 600. 400. 200. There they go! The dynamers raise! Green flash! Green flash! They're spraying us with flame! 2,000 feet! Engines are giving out! No chance to release bombs! Only one thing left! Drop on them! Drop on them! Plane and all! We're diving in the first one! Now the engine's gone! 8, 7 and 8, go! 5, you're with me! 2 and 3, swing around the back and flank him! Watch the up! Watch the up!
This is Bay, New Jersey, calling Langham Field. This is Bay, New Jersey, calling Langham Field. Come in, please.
This is Langham Field. Go ahead.
8 Army bombers in engagement with enemy tripod machines over Jersey Flats. Engines incapacitated by heat ray. All crashed. 1 enemy machine destroyed. Enemy now discharging heavy black smoke in direction of...
This is Newark, New Jersey. This is Newark, New Jersey. Warning, poisonous black smoke pouring in from the Jersey marshes. Reaches South Street. Gas mask useless. Urge population to move into open spaces. Automobiles use routes 7, 23, 24. Avoid congested areas. Smoke now spreading over Raymond Boulevard.
2X2L calling CQ. 2X2L calling CQ. 2X2L calling 8X3R. Come in, please.
This is 8X3R. Coming back at 2X2L.
How's reception? How's reception? K, please. Where are you, 8X3R? What's the matter? Where are you?
I'm out of time.
What do you mean?
The enemy is near.
Send in reinforcements.
Lieutenant Vogt, do you copy? Vogt, do you copy?
Smoke is coming in. I repeat, smoke inbound. Warning, warning.
Newark, how's your signal?
Lieutenant Vogt, I hear you. Where are you at?
The enemy has outnumbered us.
Hold on, just a minute.
I'm speaking from the roof of Broadcasting Building, New York City. The bells you hear are ringing to warn the people to evacuate the city as the invaders approach. Estimated, in last 2 hours, 3 million people have moved out along the roads to the north. Hutchison River Parkway still kept open for motor traffic. Avoid bridges to Long Island, hopelessly jammed. All communication with Jersey Shore closed 10 minutes ago. No more defenses. Our army is wiped out. Artillery, Air Force, everything wiped out. This may be the last broadcast. We'll stay here till the end. People are holding services below us, in the cathedral. Now I look down the harbor. All manner of boats, overloaded with fleeing population, pulling out from docks. Streets are all jammed. Wait a minute. The enemy is now in sight above the palisades. 5 great machines. First one crossing the river. I can see it from here, wading the Hudson like a man wading through a brook. Martian cylinders are falling all over the country. One outside of Buffalo, one in Chicago, St. Louis. They seem to be timed and spaced. Now the first machine reaches the shore. He stands watching, looking over the city. His steel, cowlish head is even with the skyscrapers. He waits for the others. They rise like a line of new towers on the city's west side. Now they're lifting their metal hands. This is the end now. Smoke comes out, drifting over the city. People see it now. They're running towards the East River, thousands of them, dropping like rats. Now the smoke's spreading faster. It's reached Times Square. People are trying to run away from it, but it's no use. They're falling like flies. Now the smoke's crossing 6th Avenue. 5th Avenue. 100 yards away. It's 50 feet.
2X2L, calling CQ. 2X2L, calling CQ. 2X2L, calling CQ. New York? Isn't there anyone on the air? Isn't there anyone on the air? Isn't there anyone? 2X2L.
We present to you now the second part based upon the Columbia Broadcasting System and the Mercury on the Air Theater, the dramatization, continuation, and tribute to Orson Welles' War of the Worlds.
As I set down these notes on paper, I'm obsessed by the thought that I may be the last living man on Earth. I have been hiding in this empty house near Grover's Mill, a small island of daylight cut off by the black smoke from the rest of the world. All that happened before the arrival of these monstrous creatures in the world now seems part of another life. A life that has no continuity with the present furtive existence of the lonely derelict who pencils these words on the back of some astronomical notes bearing the signature of Richard Pierson. I look down at my blackened hands, my torn shoes, my tattered clothes, and I try to connect them with the professor who lives at Princeton, and who on the night of October 30th glimpsed through his telescope an orange splash of light on a distant planet. My wife, my colleagues, my students, my books, my observatory, my world. Where are they? Did they ever exist? Am I Richard Pierson? What day is it? Do days even exist without calendars? Does time pass when there are no human hands left to wind the clocks? In writing down my daily life, I tell myself I shall preserve history between the dark covers of this little book that was meant to record the movements of the stars. But to write I must live, and to live I must eat. I find moldy bread in the kitchen, and an orange not too spoiled to swallow. I keep watch at the window. From time to time I catch a sight of an invader above the black smoke. The smoke still holds the house in its black coil, but at length there is a hissing sound, and suddenly I see an invader mounted on his machine, spraying the air with a jet of steam as if to dissipate the smoke. I watch in a corner as his huge metal legs nearly brush against the house. Exhausted by terror, I fall asleep. It's morning. Morning! Sun streams in the windows. The black smoke, the black cloud of gas has lifted, and the scorched meadows to the north look as though a black snowstorm has passed over them. I notice a living creature, a small red squirrel in a beech tree. I stare at him in wonder. He stares back at me. I believe at that moment the animal and I shared the same emotion, and the joy of finding another living being. I push on north. I find dead cows in a field, and beyond the charred ruins of a dairy, the silo remains standing guard over the wasteland like a lighthouse, deserted by the sea. The arrow points north. I reach the outskirts. I found Newark, undemolished, but humbled by some whim of the advancing Martians. Presently, with an odd feeling of being watched, I caught sight of something crouching in a doorway. I made a step towards it. It rose up and became a man. A man armed with a large knife.
Stop! Where do you come from?
I come from many different places. A long time ago from Princeton.
Princeton, huh? That's near Grover's Mill.
Yes.
Grover's Mill. There's no food here. This is my country. All this end of town down to the river. There's only food for one. Where are you going?
I don't know. I guess I'm looking for people.
What was that? Did you hear something just then?
No, only a bird. A live bird.
Yeah. Yeah, you get to know that birds have shadows these days. Hey, we're in the open here, but we won't be for much long.
Have you seen any invaders?
Nah, they've gone over to New York. At night, the sky is alive with their lights, just as if people were still living in it. By daylight, you can't see them. 5 days ago, a couple of them carried something big across the flats from the airport. I think they're learning how to fly.
Fly? What do you mean?
Yes, fly! Airplanes, helicopters, you know it.
Then it's all over for humanity. There's still you and I. 2 of us left.
Yeah, they got themselves in solid. They wrecked the greatest country in the world. Those green stars. They're probably falling somewhere every night. They've only lost one machine. There isn't anything to do. We're done. We're finished.
Where were you? You're in uniform.
Yeah, what's left of it. I was in the militia. National Guard. There wasn't any war, any more than there's a war between men and ants.
Yes, but we're edible ants. I found that out. What'll they do with us?
I've thought it all out. Right now, we're caught as we're wanted. Those Martians only have a few ways to go to get a crowd on the run, but they won't keep doing that. They'll be catching us systematic-like, keeping the best and storing us in cages and things. They haven't begun on us yet. All that's happened so far is because we don't have enough sense to keep quiet, bothering them with guns and stuff, and losing our heads and rushing off in crowds. Now, instead of our rushing around blind, we've got to fix ourselves up. Fix ourselves up according to the way things are now. Cities, nations, civilizations, progress. Done.
Yes, but if that's so, what is there to live for?
Well, there won't be any more concerts for millions of years or so, and no nice fancy dinners at restaurants. If it's amusement you're after, the game's up.
What is there left?
Life! That's what! I want to live. Yeah, and so do you. We're not going to be exterminated. And I don't mean to be caught either, tamed and fattened and bred like an ox.
What are you going to do?
I'm going on, right under their feet. I've got a plan. We men as men are finished. We don't know enough. We gotta learn plenty before we got a chance. And we've got to live and keep free while we learn, see? I've thought it all out, see?
Tell me the rest.
Well, it isn't all of us that are made for wild beasts. And that's what it's gotta be. That's why I watched you. Watched you. All these little office workers that used to live in these houses, they'd be no good. They've got nothing in them. They used to run off to work. I've seen hundreds of them running to catch the train in the morning, afraid they'd be sacked if they didn't. Running back at night, afraid if they won't be back in time for dinner. Lives insured and a little invested in case of accidents. Yeah, on Sundays, worried about the hereafter. The invaders will be a godsend for those guys. Nice roomy cages, good food, careful breeding, no worries. Yeah, and after a week or so, chasing about the fields on empty stomachs, they'll come and be glad to be caught.
You've thought it all out, haven't you?
Sure. You bet I have. That isn't all. These Martians, they're gonna make pets of some of them. Train them to do tricks. Who knows, get sentimental over the pet boy who grew up and had to be killed. Yeah. And some, maybe they'll train to hunt us.
No, that's impossible. No human being would...
Yes, they will. There's men who'll do it gladly. If one of them ever comes after me, why,
In the meantime, you and I and others like us, where are we to live when the Martians own the Earth?
I have figured it all out. We'll live underground. I've been thinking about the sewers under New York. There are miles and miles of them. The main ones are big enough for anybody. And there's cellars, vaults, underground storerooms, railway tunnels, subways. You begin to see, huh? We'll get a bunch of strong men together. No weak ones that rubbish out.
As you meant me to go.
Well, I gave you a chance, didn't I?
We won't quarrel about that. Go on.
Well, we've got to make safe places for us to stay in, see? Get all the books we can. Science books. That's where men like you come in, see? We'll raid the museums. We'll even spy on the Martians. It may not be so much as we have to learn before. Listen. Just imagine this. 4 or 5 of their own fighting machines suddenly start off, heat rays right and left. But men who've learned the way how. It may be even in our time. Imagine having one of them things with a heat ray wide and free. We turn it on the Martians, we turn it on men, we'd bring everybody down on their knees.
That's your plan?
Yeah. You, me, and a few more of us. We'd own the world.
I see.
Hey. What's the matter? Where are you going?
Not to your world. Goodbye. Well, after parting with the unknown artilleryman stranger, I came at last to the Holland Tunnel. I entered that silent tube, anxious to know the fate of the great city on the other side of the Hudson. Cautiously, I came out of the tunnel and made my way up Canal Street. I stood alone on Times Square. I walked up Broadway in the direction of that strange powder, past silent shop windows, displaying their mute wares to empty sidewalks, past the Capitol Theater, silent and dark, past a shooting gallery, where a row of empty guns faced an arrested line of wooden ducks. I watched a flock of blackbirds circling in the sky. I hurried on. Suddenly I caught sight of the hood of a Martian machine standing somewhere in Central Park, gleaming in the late afternoon sun. I climbed a small hill above the pond at 60th Street, and from there I could see, standing in a silent row along the mall, 19 of those great metal titans, their cowls empty, their steel arms hanging listlessly by their sides. I looked in vain for the invaders that inhabit those machines. Suddenly my eyes were attracted to the immense flock of black birds that hovered directly below me. They circled to the ground, and there, before my eyes, stark and silent, lay the Martians, with the hungry birds pecking and tearing brown shreds of flesh from their dead bodies. Later, when their bodies were examined in the laboratories, it was found that they were killed by the disease bacteria which their systems were unprepared for. Slain, after all man's defenses had failed, by the humblest thing that God in his wisdom had put upon this earth. Before the cylinder fell, there was a general persuasion that through all the deep of space no life existed beyond the petty surface of our minute sphere. Now we see further. Dim and wonderful is the vision I have conjured up in my mind, of life spreading slowly from this little seabed of the solar system, throughout the inanimate vastness of space. But that's a remote dream. It may be that the destruction of the Martians is only a reprieve, to them and not to us. Is the future ordained? Perhaps. Strange it now seems to sit in my peaceful study at Princeton, writing down this last chapter of the record begun at a deserted farm in Grover's Mill. Strange to watch children playing in the streets. Strange to see young people strolling on the green, where the new spring grass heals the last black scars of a bruised earth. Strange to watch the sightseers enter the museum where the disassembled parts of a Martian machine are kept on public view. Strange, when I recall the time when I first saw it, bright and clean-cut, hard and silent, under the dawn of the last great day.
We are pleased that you were able to rejoin us back to the world of 1938, where the world was annihilated right before you, figuratively, of course. Throughout the program, we hope that you were able to know that the wonders of storytelling come from people firsthand, in their minds and in their hearts. In regards to the aliens, to quote Orson Welles, it has no further significance. However, we know that the program that this tribute was based on will live on in history, the one that shocked the nation and entertained the world. We thank you, Orson Welles, and the Mercury on the Air Theater. That concludes our program, and cut!
Tribute to Orson Welles' War of the Worlds, presented by Stardust Theatricals. Starring Tristan Rewald as Professor Pierson, Reed Schmidt as Carl Phillips, Justin Linville as Announcer 1, the Master of Ceremonies, Kyle Sorgel as Announcer 2, the Informant and Lieutenant VOGHT, Roosevelt Green as the Unknown Stranger and General Montgomery Smith, Emily Poor as Announcer 3, the Maestro and Radio Operator 4, Patrick McDermott as Captain Lansing and Gunner, Wendy Hovland as Announcer 4, the Survivor and Radio Operator 2, Richard Chayka as Harry McDonald, an Officer, Ariel Garcia as Mr. Wilmoth and Radio Operator 3, Sammy Jaleel as Announcer 5, the News Affiliate, Policeman, and Radio Operator 1, and Samantha Knudsen as Observer and Radio Operator 5. Directed and adapted by Hunter KATZ, sound design by Justin Linville, stage management and publicity by MADDY McGarry, featuring the voice of Hunter KATZ as the Secretary of the Interior, a Stardust Theatricals production. Special thanks to Actors Access and Breakdown Services.